Basil, there is this recurring theme, and I hear it over and over again in my conversations with public health officials and doctors about coronavirus, that there's not a debate in the scientific community about the things that we can do. Everyone knows what we can't do. We don't have a vaccine. We don't have therapies. What we can do is stay in our homes, wear a mask, social distance. And Trump is just on the outside of the mainstream in that conversation. The same is turning out to be true where anywhere from 67 to 74% of Americans self-describe as being aligned with or in support of the mission of the Black Lives Matter movement and see racial injustice as a serious problem in this country. He's now not just on the other side of the 67 to 74% of Americans, he's now on the other side of his own Pentagon, his own military.
I mean, that's exactly right. And I want to just add to that by giving a story about what's happening here in New York. You know, we just had a primary some weeks ago. And when the next Congress takes effect next year, when you go from Harlem to the suburbs and beyond, fully an hour and a half to 2 hours from New York City, 6 of the 7 seats will be represented by people of color, particularly young people of color. That says a lot about the Democratic Party, yes, but it also says a lot about the fact that this president is fueling the energy against him. He's not mitigating it. He's not dampening it. He's actually fueling it. And despite the fact that he's now engaged, I guess, a different campaign manager in an attempt to sort of shake up that campaign, there is little doubt that Donald Trump will remain who he is, and that there's no one that's going to be able to change him or mold him in any particular way. So this has to be concerning for Republicans. It has to be concerning for voters that wanted to take a chance on him because they realize that perhaps that they've made a horrible, horrible mistake because, as was said before, if this crisis had occurred during the actual election or leading or just before it, I don't see any way that he could have gotten elected.
You know, I don't know if this is a perfect analogy, but investigative reporter Bob Woodward says this about the truth in government, that the truth emerges. I think you can draw that line through to Donald Trump's racism, and his racism and his true self is emerging at a point in his political lifespan where it is. You can't put it back in the bottle. You can't unknow what we know after watching Donald Trump for 4 years, that when there was a racial clash in Charlottesville, he said and he saw good people on both sides. When he was talking about impoverished nations, he called them bleep hole countries. I mean, is there anything, and now he's doubling down on it. He isn't even trying to distance himself from things that alienate the kind of voters he needs in his coalition. Is it too late for him to do anything to reverse any of those trends, in your view, Basil?
It's not too late for him to make a narrative change. But, you know, as a quote that's been attributed to Maya Angelou several times, I may not remember what you said, but I remember how you made me feel. And voters will have that memory of how they felt when they wanted leadership from him around the coronavirus, what to do, where to go, how do we comport ourselves, and he did not provide it. We wanted some racial healing, if not from him, at least from people around him. We did not get that. And so that sinking feeling of a leader that's not there for you and will not be there for you just doesn't go away, no matter what he says and no matter how he may decide to alter his language. We'll still remember how he made us feel.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.